episode of Intellectual Dummies. This is part 3 of Karen Reed, and this is what? 3 days of deliberation? Everything's said and done.
Yep, all the evidence is in.
Yeah, the jury's been deliberating for 3 days. We saw all the evidence. Yeah, what are we thinking here? I'm surprised they haven't made up their mind. What do you think?
I mean, look, this entire case hinges on whether or not there was a car accident. That's the entire case. If you determine that there was no accident, none of the charges against Karen Reed can stand.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, right? And you can take the entire case, I mean, forget about whether or not it was dog bites and dog scratches on his arm. Forget about the pieces of tail light. Forget about everything. Forget about all the state troopers. Forget about the 66 witnesses that the prosecution called. Forget about even the defense witnesses except for the last 2. Okay? The entire case comes down to 2 guys with PhDs, Acra, right? That's the name of the company.
Yeah.
I always mispronounce the name of the company that they work for. It comes down to those 2 witnesses that the prosecution could not refute in any way, shape, or form. 2 guys that came out and said it is literally scientifically impossible that Karen Reed, A, struck John O'Keefe, B, that John O'Keefe's bodily injuries represent being struck by a motor vehicle, and C, that the tail light would have reacted in the way that it did as the evidence presented, all over the lawn on 34 Fairview Road.
Yeah.
The entire case is those 2 witnesses. That's it.
Yeah.
Prosecution couldn't do anything against them. They had no experts to refute any of it. And I am mind-boggled into the fact that it's taken this long with the jury deliberations.
Yeah.
Now, I spend a lot of time listening to these lawyers on YouTube, okay? Mark Betterow, who is incredible. The lawyer is another good one. The DUI guy is another good one. Melanie Little is incredible. And, especially Melanie Little, well, Mark Betterow is the one, probably the main one I listen to. He was like, well, maybe the jury isn't doing the same thing that you and I are doing, or other people, where we're seeing this evidence, breaking it down and being like, what the fuck, They're seeing all this evidence for the first time. If they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, they're not doing any external research. They're hearing about this for the first time. They're seeing all this evidence for the first time. So maybe they're doing what a good jury should do, right? Which is take all of the evidence that they've been presented, breaking it down, and figuring out what makes sense. However, after they got the case on Tuesday, and I think on Tuesday, because there's actually a jury clock that Court TV uses to show how long, and anytime they stop for lunch, or if there's a question to the judge, that clock stops. So it's pretty accurate. But, so they only had it for maybe an hour and a half, I think, on Tuesday afternoon.
Okay.
But then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Friday, they come in at around noontime telling the judge, we can't come to a consensus on this case. And then it got weirder on Friday because they sent another note saying we want to go home we want to work through to 4:15. Now that was weird to me because it was like, okay, if all of a sudden they're asking for this roughly, because typically they break out at about 3:30.
Yeah.
So now they decide they want to work till 4:15. That makes me think, okay, maybe they're close here. Maybe they are going to have, and they still went home with nothing.
Now they keep saying a hung jury.
Yes.
So what does that mean? It's like almost 50-50?
Not at all. It could be 10. It could be 11-1.
Oh, really?
A hung jury means that
they can't come to a
complete consensus.
But do they need to come to a complete consensus? Oh, they do. Yeah.
So it only takes. Okay. So let's just say I can't imagine any way possible that 10 or 11 people think Karen Reed is guilty. I think that's literally impossible. But it only takes one person to say, no way did she do this. That doesn't change their mind. And it would be a hung jury, and they couldn't find her guilty.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the same thing is true of acquittal. So they can't acquit her if there's one person who says, no, she did this. I know she did this.
Yeah.
it's just it boggles my head, I guess. I don't know, for lack of a better word, because again, even going through all the evidence, once you get to those two specials at the end, it's like that's it. That's the end of the game. I mean, that is literally it. It's not scientifically possible. Keep in mind that the jury doesn't know who paid for those specialists, but we do. It was the FBI.
Yeah.
The FBI paid for these guys to go out and try and make that, reconstruct that accident. You know what I mean? And they found there's no way possible. I mean, the defense couldn't say that it was the FBI, but they made it very clear when they were questioning those guys, did we pay you? Have you ever met me before? Have you ever met the defendant before? Did the prosecution pay you? Nope.
Yeah.
It was all, So, that, I mean, if you're the jury at this point, because you've heard a lot during the case of, you hear the state grand jury, you heard a testimony of coming out of the state grand jury a lot, and then you heard a lot of at another hearing, okay, that isn't named, okay, another hearing in June, and then you hear a lot of, like I said, okay, well, we didn't pay you, and the state didn't, or the Commonwealth didn't pay you. The jury has to be thinking, who the hell paid these guys?
Yeah.
And with all this other testimony coming from the other, as they call it, the other hearing, how have they not figured out it's the FBI at this point?
Yeah.
And who else is there? There's the Department of Justice, and then it breaks, which is federal, including the FBI, and then it breaks down into your state investigators and the state grand jury. It's the only option.
Yeah.
So it kind of boggles me that they haven't figured out that this is the FBI. We know, the jury doesn't know, that the defense was handed over 3,000 pages of exculpatory evidence from the FBI. I mean, I think that's just the thing that's really hurting my brain with this whole thing, is that we know what's been given to the defense. We know the FBI is involved. We know the FBI is still involved. They're looking into Mike Morrissey and the district attorney, and they've been looking into Proctor and all of that nonsense. But the jury doesn't know that information. Okay, but again, man, you just get down to those two witnesses, and nothing else matters.
Yeah.
Literally nothing. So I don't understand what is happening. I think there's probably one or maybe two holdouts that are just determined on her guilt, despite the overwhelming lack of evidence from the prosecution. And
what would be the benefit of that?
Well, I mean, there is no benefit, really.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to say they're sticking to their guns and nothing's going to change my mind. There's no benefit for them whatsoever.
Yeah.
I'll tell you too. There's also no benefit in my mind to for the Commonwealth whatsoever, because they have to then decide whether or not they're going to retry her.
Yeah.
And good luck. First off, good luck finding a jury anywhere really in the state of Massachusetts comprised of 12 people that have never heard of this case.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly the defense is going to ask for a change of venue immediately, and it would have to be granted because it's just impossible.
Yeah.
We're going to take this thing out to Worcester County or something like that. And even
Everybody, dude, you see fucking signs as far as... I mean, we spoke to a woman a couple of days ago that said, my friend in Texas...
Yeah, I mean...
bought a free grade sign.
Exactly. I mean, it's an international story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gone as far as Australia, you know what I mean? You watch some of these YouTube lawyers or whatever, and they're getting comments from Australia about this case.
Yeah.
So that's your first problem. The second problem is, are you really bringing Proctor back to the stand?
Yeah.
Are you really bringing Butnick, a.k.a. Bukaki, back to the stand? Because I'll tell you what, he's got a lot of problems in his future. I think more than Proctor even, that guy has a lot of legal issues coming his way. He perjured the crap out of himself on the stand. And I think he's going to wind up in a whole lot of trouble real soon here. So you have to bring these witnesses back. And never mind the fact that at the time that the FBI gave the defense these 3,000 pages of exculpatory evidence, that was what they felt they could release them. They didn't show the whole hand.
Yeah.
Because the FBI is not going to do that. If there's still, for example, if there's still evidence that they're investigating, or maybe statements from people and stuff like that, that they're still running down those leads, they're not giving that to the defense.
Yeah.
But now maybe those leads have been run down. maybe another 500, 600, 700 pages of evidence gets handed over to the defense.
Yeah.
In between the prosecution deciding whether or not they're going to retry her. I think I'll tell you one thing too. I think Lallygagger, as I like to call him, the prosecutor, I think he wants to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, I do. I think he wants this thing to be over with. I think for the prosecution, a hung jury is a huge win, even if they never retry him.
Yeah.
Because now they can say, well, we tried, you know, and blah, 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 blah. But I can't imagine a world in which they retry her if this ends up a hung jury. I just want to see an acquittal, man.
Yeah.
I just really, really want to see an acquittal because this woman didn't do it. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. I mean, what a lot of these guys like Aidan Carney, I mean, when he broke it out in April of 23, I mean, he was going through the court documents, the pretrial hearings. He went through every single piece of paper related to this thing. Go and do that if you don't want to take my word for it. You know what I mean? This whole thing is just an absolute sham. And I mean, we've kind of gone through in the first two parts of this, the evidence for that. But we hadn't talked about the ACRA guys. We hadn't talked about the doctor who came out and said, like, with 1,000% certainty, those are dog bites and scratches on his arm. Which, by the way, the prosecution had no ability to refute that either. Either. None. You know what I mean? What did Lallygagger do? Try and hem her up on how long she had a Boston Globe subscription?
Yeah.
It was the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my goddamn life. You know what I mean? And it's just an absolute joke. And after this is over, the one thing that I think you and me will be talking a lot about on this podcast is the next interesting case in the state of Massachusetts, Sandra Birchmore.
Yeah.
Sandra Birchmore. I think that's going to be a name that is going to start getting, it already has started getting some attention.
Yeah, some traction for sure.
Oh,
now that article you sent me, what was it? The coroner came out and said that there's no way that she killed herself?
Right. So the medical examiner in Massachusetts that originally examined her called it a suicide.
Yeah.
Supposedly what she did was hang herself from her bathroom door. In other words, tie something around her neck, tie something to the doorknob, and drop down.
Yeah.
That can be done, but the family hired a New York City medical examiner who, as far as medical examiner offices go, like the New York City medical examiner is like the top of the top.
Yeah.
And he, absolutely not. He is 100% convinced that she was strangled to death. But I mean, just a quick talk about her case. The main thing that I was sending you yesterday was just an overview, right? You have three. Now, this girl was involved in something that had something to do with a police league. I forget exactly what it was called. It started when she was 13. And these three Stoughton, Massachusetts officers basically, I mean, Jesus, I'm trying to think of a nice way to say it, but I mean...
They groomed her pretty much.
They groomed her, yeah.
One of them was a resource officer in the school.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely correct. And the three of them basically, I mean, had sex with her multiple times. They basically, I mean, for lack of a nicer thing to say, passed her around.
Yeah.
And she was, you know, this started, I think the sexual activity, if I'm not mistaken, started when she was 15. She winds up pregnant and then winds up dead. And and I don't have the name of the exact cop. I should have had that in my mind before doing this, but he was one of those three officers was the last one to be seen with her alive in her apartment, like security surveillance.
Wow.
Okay, and then she winds up dead. And here's the real kicker to the whole goddamn thing. Where did she die? In Canton, Mass. She went to Stoughton High School. These were Stoughton police officers. But she moved to fucking Canton.
Wow.
And that's where this homicide investigation begins. And here we go with essentially a Karen Reed story all over again. Several of the state police that investigated the death of John O'Keefe were on the case of Sandra Birchmore, including Trooper Garino, who came out with her cell phone evidence, supposedly, who is a complete sham of an investigator for cell phones. You know, Garino, Proctor was involved in it, Buchnick was involved in it, and it's just, here we go all over again, the same players in the same town and the same bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
And this is insane.
Yeah.
This is literally insane. I mean, what is up? the Stoughton police chief came out and basically said, I would love to investigate this, but I can't because she died in Norfolk County, in Canton. And so it's the same scumbag chief of police. It's all of it. All of it is happening all over again.
Yeah.
And this time it involves a very innocent young woman who was, according to the New York City Medical Examiner, strangled to death while she was pregnant. And I would assume with one of the three gentlemen's children.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Especially if that guy's fucking married.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Not only are you going to lose your family, you're going to lose your career, you're going to lose your pension. Who knows how many fucking years he had. You know, I mean, would you fucking... and not to mention, if you're a cop, you know what cops are looking for in terms of evidence. Mm-hmm. You know how to plant stuff. You know how to spin the things. Mm-hmm. You have all that knowledge, and you can either put that knowledge to use, or your life is over.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, let's talk about the fact, too, that not one arrest has been made in this case yet. And forget about the murder of the young woman. What about the fact that they were having sex with her at age 15?
Yeah.
Why are these guys not in jail for pedophilia?
Are they still on?
There's not been one. They're not on the force. There's not on the force. But there's been not one arrest related to this whatsoever.
That's fucking insane.
Not one arrest.
That's insane.
They were having sex with this poor girl at 15. At least 15. I don't think it started at 13. Again, this is a new case for me.
15's young enough.
15
it's under 18.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
If my math is correct.
Yeah, the last time I checked.
Yeah.
And these are all grown adult men with badges.
Yeah, grooming children. In the schools that they work in.
In the schools.
Yeah.
Okay, what the fuck is wrong with this? What is going on right now? In Massachusetts, it seems to be super prevalent. But, I mean, let's be very clear about this. Somebody brought up a great point to me the other day, actually. Because we've said about Karen Reed, this could happen with anyone at any time, right? What's happening with Karen Reed being, essentially, I don't care what anybody says, she's being framed for murder here. You kind of think that the people in power, i.e. Mike Morrissey, and the district attorneys and these other people that have the badges and the guns, you have to think that they want you to believe it can happen to anyone at any time, because what they're basically saying is don't fuck around or else you're going to find out.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think it's our job at this point. I mean, the Sandra Birchmore thing makes me want to vomit. I mean, I'm not kidding. You know what I mean? It makes me sick to my goddamn stomach. So it's like, it's up to us at this point to put a stop to this crap. Like, no, it's not going to happen to anyone anytime. In fact, you know what? Look, I've said this before. I am not somebody that believes in bashing the police. I do think there are a lot of good cops out there. I think I've been helped by cops in my life. I can't say any have particularly done me anything wrong. But, I mean, there are bad cops, dude. And we have to stop pretending like the thin blue line that really became prevalent with BLM and all that. We have to stop pretending like that's the end-all, be-all, because it's fucking not.
Yeah.
It's not. There are dirty, dirty bastards out there. And this is evidence of it, these last two cases alone. There's another case coming down the pipeline, too, with something we have to stop pretending that if you wear a badge, you're automatically a good guy. Yeah. Because you're just not. So let's not pretend it anymore, okay? And a young woman dead proves it. And I'll tell you, I don't know what the comments are going to be on this video or how it's going to go, but I don't want to see any of this victim-blaming bullshit, because you're a fucking idiot if you think that this young girl is somehow responsible for what happened to her when you're talking about 3 grown men. You know what I mean? Sorry, fuck off.
Yeah. No, that's crazy shit. Yeah, I mean, I've said it on the first episode, there's something in the water in Massachusetts. A lot of fucked up shit's going on.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, no, it's terrible. If I had to make a prediction for how Karen Reed ends, I unfortunately am predicting a hung jury in which she does not get retried. I would love to be wrong. I would love to see a straight up acquittal come out of there. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I think that there's gonna be a holdout or two. Maybe they didn't. Sometimes people are just fucking. They bias themselves. Okay, so maybe one woman didn't like, and I don't, it could be a man too, but you know, Karen Reed has a certain look on her face and they're like, oh, I don't like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for some reason, based off of that, they're going to have a prejudice towards her as opposed to like looking at the facts of the case. Who knows? Who knows? You know, I mean, one thing's for sure is once this jury is released, they'll be doing interviews. I guarantee it. Somebody's going to spill the tea on what happened in that jury room.
Yeah.
But none of us know. None of us know what's going on in there. I hope it's an acquittal. I just have a gut feeling it's going to be a hung jury, and that sucks for her. It sucks for Karen.
Yeah.
You know, but Sandra Birchmore's the next one, and
yeah, that's gonna be the next big thing. I hope it gets traction. I hope. I hope there's a whole thing about it.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, the Herald did a whole thing about it. It was a Herald of the Globe already a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks ago. Did a massive article on it. I mean, because as soon as the New York City medical examiner came out and said, no way was this suicide.
Yeah.
People started being like, wait, what? But I mean, again, why the hell aren't these guys in jail for having sex with this girl?
Yeah.
Like, what?
That's crazy.
What?
That's crazy.
Like, how are they just at home kicking up with their feet?
I know.
Like, it doesn't take the murder out of it. You should be in jail for pedophilia. Like, what the fuck?
That's insane.
So that's the update on Karen Reed. I hope the next time we come back we have more answers and more to say about Sandra.
Yeah. We'll see what's up. Hopefully Monday we'll know what's going on.
I hope so.
And thank you for listening. We'll put that one in the books. Like and subscribe.